Guys, we are playing Among Us.
So I don't think that's actually realistic. That's just
I want to be a builder.
threat here potentially, and that's why.
Now you might have noticed
to try to detect those type of threats too.
Chief Armstrong.
that I had the George Washington.
And then he was tackled and subdued by soldiers. What does this
The
tell
George
you about how this
Washington
might have played out?
thing.
The individuals that were involved, they were all to the
Well, it's because
potentially they all wanted to go. So whatever led this individual to make the decision
it's because
to pull the weapon out and to start
I
just
bought
shooting
it.
individuals.
I forgot.
Either related to,
I really wanted to buy it. Oh, I'm imposter this round.
An act that was just in the moment, or it was something where
I
this individual had a
wanted
long-standing challenge or problem with
to,
somebody there, and things escalated to where they felt the need to bring a weapon into that space and wanted to carry this out.
And Josh, you're still an officer in the military reserve. What does the U.S. military do to try to prevent and stop incidents like these? Obviously, this is not as bad as the Fort Hood shooting we all remember from years ago.
That was body.
It could have really, it's bad enough, but it could have been much worse.
Yeah, absolutely. But for those soldiers subduing this person, you can only imagine how worse this could have been. To your question about what the military does, there's physical security. Anyone who goes up to a base, you roll up at the ACP, the access control point. You have military police that are there controlling access. But again, we're talking about an individual who had authorized access to be on the base. And that's why the military regularly trains people and reinforces the training on trying to look for warning signs.
Everyone's saying skip.
Threats. And that includes, you have a colleague, a friend in the military, you start to notice
And it ain't on. Yes!
struggles financially or personally, and the goal with that training is to sensitize people that, look, you don't just sit on that information, which is why it's going to be very interesting and important here for investigators with Army CID to actually interview people in the shooter's orbit, his friends, his colleagues, any of the victims, to determine whether or not they had some type of beef with him. And so again, that's what they try to sensitize the soldiers to. That look, it's incumbent on everyone. If you see someone who is struggling, to speak up, the goal being to try to prevent something like this.
Chief Armstrong, what kind of information do you think law enforcement is working to get out of the suspect right now?
I wanna.
The question that they're trying to answer is, why did this happen and how did it happen? Whenever you have an incident like this, there are going to be a lot of questions that people on the base and people in the community are going to want answers to. And you're trying to figure out what contributed to this, because the number one thing that you want to do on the other side of it is to try to ensure that this doesn't happen again. So they're going to be looking at how this happened, how he got the weapon in there, why the checks and balances had in place failed in this instance, so they can put things in place to try to prevent this from happening again.
And Josh, while the motive remains unclear and under investigation,
I vote gray.
I'm curious your thoughts as
It's
to how
literally gray.
are working to figure that out right now. Obviously, they're interrogating. But beyond that,
Yeah, we're not talking about someone just firing upon one person, and so it appears this could have been indiscriminate firing. So there will be that question: what was the motivation? Was this some type of a situation between this individual and a group? Were there other structures?
Let's go!
Acting upon? It's interesting. The FBI has gone back and studied past mass shooters, the famed FBI
it's not me.
profilers. They found certain commonalities, and that is that most people in these situations, they don't just snap one day and then start to engage in violence, but they go along this pathway and become more and more working toward that violent effort. And a lot of times, in most of these situations, the profilers have found they do exhibit those warning signs. And so that will be what is critical here to try to determine what was the shooter going through in his life that then resulted in this. Interestingly, our colleague John Miller reported that back in May, the suspect was arrested by local law enforcement. It appears off base for driving while under influence. It appears that information did not actually get to the military because
she faked. She faked. I want to win this one.
So there was this question: were there things that were spiraling in his life to include now running up against the those big questions for investigators as they try to piece together the line.
Well, you mentioned the U.S. criminal justice system, Josh, and I'm wondering on that. I mean, obviously the military has its own uniform code of justice. Is he ultimately just going to be handed over to a local law enforcement
Come
like the
on.
police department or the police department, or is there someone?
Yes,
in the military?
self-report. It's self-report.
That I mean,
It's not
the
me.
base would be handled by the regular
Right.
criminal justice system, but he's now in the military justice system, which falls under
I
the
quit.
Uniform Code of Military
The one
Justice.
time I
The
get to be
military has
imposter,
its
they
own,
just vote me out because they hate me.
and its own prosecution,
11.
its own courts, for example, and that is where he will be likely, I assume.
I'm gonna have to post. You don't have to give me any subscribers or likes in this one.
Military can convict
Because I
people
know
and can fine
it sucks.
people